Making art is about paying attention in a certain kind of way. It's a way of getting comfortable with letting the process speak and letting the work speak to you about what it needs to be. Hi, I'm Ranu Mukherjee, and this is my studio. I started out making paintings and films, and they were separate because we didn't have the digital, and I couldn't actually put them together. The films that I make incorporate photography, painted image, and digital imagery. I made up the term hybrid film when I started to show these pieces, and I didn't feel like the terms that were available were adequate to describe what I was doing. We're going to look at how I made my most recent hybrid film called Home in the World. The starting point for the film is a film from the mid-'80s by Satyajit Ray, the Indian filmmaker. I'm working with just one image from that film, which is an image of the corridor where the woman kind of moves from domestic to civic life. And I was really interested in the question of whether or not we continually have to keep going through this corridor. It has many, many layers. The whole film has 236 layers. So there's always a lot going on at any given moment. And it also moves from an image at the beginning, which is this, and by the end of the film, you're here. I figured out first that what was going to happen was that the first half of the piece, which is 2.5 minutes, was going to be the corridor falling apart. So I'm trying to make this really synthetic object feel like something physical. And so I had to animate each of these shapes individually. And then the other thing that happens as it falls apart, there's also these people that are walking through. This yellow is a shadow from the original film. So it's kind of like the original film becomes a ghost behind this piece. You know, what I didn't know about this image was what was going to happen in the second half, what was going to replace this colonial space, because this is basically a depiction of colonial architecture falling apart. So this is a really good example of a cinematic trope that has to happen. There needs to be a transition between these images. And in this case, the sweeper is the person who makes the transition possible. These are images from right outside of the studio I had in Mumbai, and this is like an earth ground that's been swept, because this is the floor. Like this is, you know, it's outside, but it gets swept every day. And I wanted to use these images of this sweeping pattern. And then I decided that I actually needed the sweeper to be in the film. So she sweeps away the fragments of this glass or this colored shapes, this geometry. And it's replaced by this landscape, which is also constructed, but it's all constructed from images that I shot when I was there. The use of space in the work comes from looking at 19th century lithographs from India, which have a really particular kind of space that treats the landscape as both an energetic body and a stage. And it's this kind of shallow stage-like space that I'm really intrigued with and that comes through in the films that I'm making. Elements from different cultures come together. Sometimes they are smooth and melodic, and sometimes they're really awkwardly jammed together. And I think that's the kind of visual language that I'm trying to make, is something where things aren't always smooth and easy.